the realm of dead air. For the next 2 hours, you will be transported into the world of the strange and the supernatural. You might not feel the need to cleanse your laptops or mobile devices afterwards. But it might not be a bad idea.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome and good evening. This is Dead Air Live on the Dead Air Full Spectrum channel, and it is our Sunday night show with myself, George Lopez, Mr. Ken DaCosta, and joining us for this evening, a very special co-anchor, Miss Erin Bush, paranormal producer to the stars. And they're going to have it joining us tonight. A very special guest we are still waiting on, Mr. Chris Fleming. Again, he's on Central Time. You know, those people are always confused. Everything they do is 1 hour before or after.
Those people.
So, but we are so glad for you guys to join us tonight in the chat. Hello to everybody. And yes, Joseph Freza, you won. You were the first one in again this week, which means you are in the running for a T-shirt or something. We'll figure something out there, my friend. That's it. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Also, the thumbs up for the content and the reminder bell for all the wonderful shows that we have here on our channel. So thank you, guys. Ken is bell crazy tonight.
He's gonna do that all night.
I'm practicing to be a concierge someday.
Or you're trying to check in, one or the other. But yeah, we're looking forward to having Chris on tonight. For those of you who've been with us for quite some time, you know Chris has been a staple for us on several occasions in the past to come on back to the old Block Talk days. So we're happy for him to come join us this week also. Erin, thank you for doing this tonight also. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
No, absolutely. A different perspective. And I think pretty much the audience is tired of looking at Ken and I's old faces. So it's nice to have a fresh face joining us tonight.
Well, thank you for having me again. So, it's always exciting.
No offense to you, Ken, by no means. I meant most
none taken.
My allergies are killing me, so there's going to be quite a bit of this tonight. So I apologize in advance.
It's a setup.
Ken, from what I understand, as we're waiting for our guest to join us here, you had an exciting notification recently.
Yeah, I managed to escape over 60 years of this, but last Wednesday I got a jury summons. So tomorrow at 9 a.m., I'm in Newport, Rhode Island for jury selection. So if anybody out there in chat has come face to face with this before and you have any advice for me, let me know. Feel free to put in a bad word for me. It certainly won't hurt. I'm thinking the best way to get out of it is answer every question by saying according to the prophecy.
Or answer everything in Pig Latin.
Whatever they ask you, it's like according to the prophecy. And then maybe they'll let me go. And then maybe they won't. But jury, I don't have jury duty. It's jury selection. So who knows what the case will be? It's either civil or criminal. But I will give you updates on who we're sending up.
I would watch Runaway Jury and see if there's anything you learn about blackmailing the lawyers. There's a possibility there for you, Ken.
I've seen every episode of Perry Mason. I'm good. I'm ready for this.
I think the important part is that you are contributing to society, as we all should do it as our civic duty. And if anything, Ken, I think you should be the foreman.
Yeah, that's a great idea from your lips to nobody's ears. Lori says, bring a great book to read. I don't know. Is that a thing?
Yeah, for sure.
Bring a book?
Yeah. Well, while you're being vordeered, yes. If you get chosen. Yeah.
Good idea. Look over your shoulder, consult with spirits.
That was my suggestion. Just tell them you talk to dead people, and they'll be like, "All right, well,
I can
maybe
do
next
that.
time, Mr. DaCosta."
Or
Hey, Robbo, thanks for stopping in, man. Thank you for your service.
yeah. Also, just keep in mind, Ken, if you want to get out every question they ask during the voir dire, during the selection process, just finish it with "Hail Satan."
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll work.
particular-
I'm not trying to get on the docket. I'm just trying to get away from this. Speaking of looking over my shoulder to consult with spirits, George, I think our
Yes.
guest has arrived.
He has indeed. He has indeed. And we are looking forward to having him on. Ken, if you want to do the honors.
Yes, sir. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you know him from Dead Famous. You know him from Psychic Kids, and you know him most recently from Haunted Scotland. He's a spirit medium and paranormal investigator, and when he's not filming, he consults with clients around the world on paranormal and spiritual matters. He also has a BA in fine arts and is an accomplished artist, and is responsible for some of the most utilized pieces of equipment the paranormal field has ever seen. He is one of the most informative, positive, and generous people in the field. We're always glad to have him back here. Please welcome to Dead Air, Mr. Chris Fleming.
Hey, there he is.
How you doing? Hi, Aaron. Hi, George.
Hi,
Ken.
how are you?
Hey,
Good,
good.
thank
Did I cover everything there, Chris? Did we nail it?
I left it to you.
It's like, sure, whatever.
Whatever.
Close enough.
Chris, just a quick observation, but looking at Ken, don't you think he's going to be commentating some kind of sporting event with those headphones? What do you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You've
We
reached
just crossed the 50-yard line.
Yes, you've reached Geico. How can I help you tonight?
Well, it's so great to have you again, Chris. You're looking good, keeping busy as ever. For when I see 2 investigations already this weekend, huh?
Yeah, we did Tinker Swiss Cottage the last weekend and this weekend. So I slept in today.
I don't blame
Good
you.
man.
As you should. As you should.
Great place. Great place.
I'm going to do this because, again, this field is constantly evolving. And what I mean is there's new blood that's always coming in to this field, whether it's parents that take their kids out to these investigations or they watch the shows. But give everybody a little introduction to Chris Fleming. Your introduction to the field yourself, and where you got to that celebrity status that you are right now.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. I mean, I grew up in a haunted house. I had an imaginary friend when we lived in Salt Lake City, and I didn't see it as an imaginary friend. I remember seeing this spirit named Chip was his name. And my mom used to always, talk about Chip and this and that. And then when I got older, she tells me it was imaginary. I said, no, it wasn't, Mom. I remember seeing him, and I remember him taking me places, introducing to other kids. But when I reflect back as an adult, the kids were saying, oh, wow, he can see us too. He's like, yeah. I said, of course I can see you. As a child, you didn't think anything of that until when you got older. But growing up in a haunted house, having experiences where my parents had experiences, our babysitters would quit. 2 of them said we had the devil in our house because we made the mistake of doing Ouija boards to communicate with these spirits to try to find out who they were. And don't get me wrong. I mean, for years when my mom and I would do this as well as I would do it with some of my friends in grade school, it was a huge education because we would ask really interesting questions about the spirit world. We would ask about what are they doing? Where are they from? So I did learn a lot growing up. And for me, it was like having these secret friends that most people didn't have that type of connection.
Sure.
So I would sit in the Ouija board, in front of the Ouija board sometimes by myself. The planchette would not move, but I would sit there and just talk to them. And there'd be times where I would get responses, but then also I would feel stuff that would be coming from them. So when I got older, it wasn't anything that I had an idea that I was going to make it a profession. For me, it was like, okay, I'm going to be an artist or I'm going to be a fireman. This was the type of avenue I was going. My dad wanted me to play sports. And I'm like, nah, I'm not going to go down the line of playing sports like you did. So for me, it was like, okay, I was an artist, graphic designer for years. Then I got into the mortgage business. But when I was in the mortgage business, there was several people in our office one night. We were eating pizza, working late. and they started telling ghost stories. And we had a lot of individuals in this mortgage company that were from different countries at one time, and they were telling their stories from their native countries. And I'm sitting there listening, going,
Wow.
and I haven't said anything to them. They had no idea that I've had these experiences growing up. So I was fascinated by the fact that people from other parts of the world had extraordinary experiences. So that led me to do research. What was my research is we had a store 2 doors down from where we worked in Chicago called City Newsstand. So I would go in there and I started picking up Fate magazine because I remember reading that as a kid. I started picking up all these other magazines that were out there. There was Alternate Perceptions, there was Strange magazine, there was UFO magazine. And I started going through all these and once again became fascinated by the stuff that I had happened as a kid. And I still had some answers. I needed answers. Well, lo and behold, after about 6 months of doing that and reading these magazines, I decided to publish my own magazine. So I published my magazine for several years. It was called Unknown Magazine. And during that time, from like 96, 97, about 2000, 2001, I had done so many radio shows, interviewed people all over the world that have had experiences. And I came to the conclusion that our entire world, we've got this multiverse, as we call it today, of paranormal phenomena that goes on not only within our dimension, but in other dimensions as well.
Now, forwarded to getting involved with it from a TV perspective. I don't think we've even talked about all of this.
It was not something I ever wanted to do, and people don't understand that. I had no interest in being on TV, but back in '99, ABC had contacted me. They were doing a series called Real Scary Stories, and they asked if I'd be a consultant because they had these kids that were going to Bachelor's Grove Cemetery. It's only about an hour from me. So I met them there and I consulted with these kids about the place, ghosts, and I hung out there the whole time they were filming it. I thought it was really cool. Oh, cool. I'm on a film set and everything. And, I'm watching these kids do this and have these ghost hunting and stuff. And I thought it was interesting. Then after that, I had other studios and stuff contact me with advice. They were trying to do movies about stuff. There was ABC, World's Scariest Ghost Caught on Tape. So I was a consultant on some of these shows. Some I got credit for, some I didn't, but I didn't care. I just thought it was kind of cool to contribute. And then if we fast forward, I got really busy in the mortgage business in 2000 because the rates had come down and we got really busy and I couldn't do both. So I stopped doing the magazine. Plus I was in a relationship. I was dating this girl and she gave me an ultimatum. She's like, it's either me or the magazine. And I was already burned out. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do something else in the future with the magazine. I had this perception that I was going to be doing some type of documentary or series with the magazine where there was going to be a woman next to me and she had dark hair. And so I said, okay, I'm just going to let the magazine go because I'm not making any money. Well, you pay it forward. There's synchrodestiny, and sometimes our past catches up with us in a good or a bad way. We fast forward 3 years later, and I'm getting these emails from a production company, 24 Productions in the UK, saying, hey, we're working on this TV series. We'd like to have you on the show or like to have you try out. And I didn't even bother. I had no interest in it, because I was focused on the mortgage business. I was focused on my life. And about a month had passed, and then I get a phone call in the office. And our reception goes, Chris, we got a call from the UK. I'm like, we don't do mortgages in the UK. She's like, I know, but she says she's been trying to reach you. And her name's Charlotte. And I was like, oh my God, I remember the email from a woman named Charlotte. Like, all right, put her through. So she's asking me all these questions. You still doing the magazine? No. Oh no. Are you still interested in paranormal? Like, what do you mean? It's my life. I grew up in a haunted house. I can't run away from it. So lo and behold, they flew me out to the UK, and I thought it'd be just a fun trip, for 2-3 days. They're going to pay for it. Why not? Who wants to go to the UK for 2-3 days and get it paid for, right? My mom's like, just go, So I went there. I met Gail Porter. We shot the pilot for Dead Famous over 2 days.
Yep.
And it was only going to be a 5-minute little reel that they were going to present to the studio. So I didn't think anything of it. Came back home. 6 weeks later, get a phone call. It's green lit. I said, oh, congratulations. She goes, no, you're going to film with us. I go, well, you don't need me. You can just go do it. I seriously did not want to do a TV show. I said, I'm busy with the mortgage business, and the stuff that I went through is very personal. I can tell it through a magazine and have other people tell their story, but now you want to have my face on a screen doing the things that I went through in school. I said, I'm just not interested. So they pleaded with me. I had a conversation with my mom and my sister, talking about what we're going to do. And I said, all right, I'll do it. I get to go to these haunted places and travel, and they're going to pay me for it. They didn't pay much, but it's funny because I argued with my boss. I said, I need this time off. He goes, well, what are they paying you? I showed him. He's like, you're not making any money. You're making more money here. I said, I know it's not about the money. It's like, I get to go to these places I've always heard of: Winchester House, Alcatraz, Queen Mary, stuff that I would never get access
Right.
to. And I'm going to go there and go ghost hunting. I said, so I want to do it. So we did it, and then for the rest is history. The show took off and I was doing all these other shows. So that's how I got involved.
Wow.
Kicking and screaming, but
and
you come out on the other side of it, and having those kind of experiences. Sometimes, got to tell the universe, yes, Chris.
No, yeah, it's it takes you down a different path. I look back,
Right.
what would my life be if I stayed in the mortgage business? I mean, I stayed in the mortgage business till 2010. The market changed. I was doing all these lectures, speaking, and everything else, and I couldn't juggle. Plus, I had gotten in that car accident in 2009, so I was always fatigued. So the mortgage business had to go. And I said, I'm just going to focus on the paranormal because that's where I'm always getting pulled back to anyway.
It's amazing.
Well, Erin has a similar origin story because she is a medium as well, and she walked away from the administrative field to kind of focus on that. So that's why we thought it would be kind of cool to bring her in tonight to
Oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah, we didn't do an official introduction yet, Chris, and I apologize. That's my fault.
Hey.
Erin Bush, she's a paranormal show producer. She's also goes hand in hand with Andrea Perrin with her show and a lot of the other events. Sometimes she covers for Andrea Perrin's show on Friday nights, but wanted to bring her on for a different perspective. And again, there's a lot of parallels to the both of you. So, Erin, I know you're still on mute. If you want to say hello.
Hello. Well, I have the dog. He hasn't made any noise yet, but I'm like preemptive strike. So very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
I spent some time in the mortgage industry as well. And then I was in the brokerage business. And then I did 10 years in law. And I was like, what? I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
I quit. I quit.
Over and over with all the paperwork and,
the stress and people don't go to lawyers because they're happy, right? Somebody's in jail or somebody's dying or, the list is endless. And I just said, people are like, what are you going to do? I'm like, I have no idea. And then 2 months later, I get dropped into Andrea Perrin's lap and now I'm here. I feel like Jack Dawson on the Titanic movie, at the poker table where he's like, sitting at the bottom of the ship. And now I'm drinking, champagne on the finest ship in the world with you people. I still am sometimes like, how did I get here? But this is where the universe wanted me, I guess. So
absolutely.
Here we are.
Absolutely.
I wonder the same thing. I haven't been able to answer that question yet. How did I get here?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's incredible. It really is. But so, let fast forward to what's going on today, Chris, because, you, as I was saying before you arrived on the show, you've been with us many times, including all the way back to the Blog Talk days. And those are fun times. And here you are going as strong as ever and keeping busy on a regular basis and one investigation after another, one Paracon after another. And, is it as interesting and as new for you now as it was 20 years ago?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because the last 2 nights when we were at Tinker Swiss Cottage, there was an energy that was above and beyond what we've experienced over the years. And, for people who don't know, I mean, I was very fortunate that when I did my magazine, I would speak at Whole Life Expo or I would speak at a couple different, like new age type shows talking about my magazine and my experiences. And then after Dead Famous came out, I think the first public appearance I made was at Penn State at UNIVCON. And that was in 2006. And I remember getting up there and talking to all my peers, other people in the paranormal and everything. And it was just a wonderful experience that I got hired from GP Entertainment to start speaking at colleges and universities. So then from like 2006 to like about 2012, I would say I was doing anywhere from 15 to about 25 or 30 events a year, speaking at colleges and then also doing these events. But for my car accident in 2009, my symptoms were getting worse with my pain and everything else that I had to lay low for a couple of years because I was fighting myself and the pain that I was dealing with. And then a couple of years later, I was able to rebound with certain medications and stuff. Cannabis, actually, it saved me. I'll be honest, because they were putting me on muscle relaxers and pain pills, which was causing GERD, acid reflux, and it was getting me very irritated and angry because it was causing chemical changes. I said, I can't do this. This is not me. And 2016, a doctor had prescribed some cannabis for me, and I take that once in a while. I'll take these little pills or edibles at night, and sometimes I smoke, but I really don't like to smoke too much. So it helped. It helped a lot to bring me back and my personality as well as my interest in life, because I was able to remove some of the pain, but also it helps you focus a little bit more too. So that was a godsend. But then I started getting back into some events, but it's not the same it was over a decade ago. Dave Schrader was always doing his events, darkness events. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
was always on the billing for that. And it
Mhm.
got to a point where I said, you know what? I don't want to travel as much because I'm always doing that with the colleges. So I started doing some small events in Chicago a couple of years ago. And I just called my events Paranormal Access Events. And it just took off. I was very fortunate that people were buying tickets to it. And I was like, okay,
Right.
I'm going to do another one. I'm going to do another one. All right. This one sold out. Then let's go back there again. And I'm like, holy cow. So I do several, small events a year. It could be anywhere from like these Tinker Cottage. I want to make them really intimate. We just did 20 people at each one. So it could be anywhere from 30 to about 100 people at these events. And it gives us a chance to come together and investigate these places in Illinois or just outside Illinois. And we have people that are going to every one. And that's why it sells out so quick. Within 8 hours and 10 hours when I launch it, it's sold because everybody that's been the other one wants to come to this one too. So we've got like this family. And like I started off with saying, is we had a lot of those people here over the last 3 events at Tinker Swiss Cottage. And it's great to see those familiar faces and build that like family friendship. And we had a lot of laughs last night. I mean, we had so much fun with the spirits. We were telling jokes to the spirits using EVP and the spirit box. And then we would deliver the punchline and then they would laugh or they would say, that sucks. It was just hilarious.
Boo.
Oh my God. Well, here's the funny thing is I did the, knock, knock, and then instead of them saying who's there, because the Tinker family is from the late 1800s, early 1900s. So I said, knock, knock. Instead of them saying who's there, they go, what? Kind of ruined the joke. And I said, boo, and then I said, boo hoo, and so funny, so they would have these responses. And we did something different. Instead of like asking the same question, who are you here? How many are you here? Why are you here?
Yeah.
We started telling them jokes. And we started
Tough crowd.
games, or we'd sing to them. We sang Amazing Grace on Friday. One woman sang, and then the spirit box said, everybody sing. So we all pulled up on our phones Amazing Grace, and we sang Amazing Grace, and the spirit box went nuts. Love, thank you, amen. And they started saying all this stuff in response to what we're doing. The reason being, that's what they used to do in the late 1800s, early 1900s. They would invite people over at this place, and they'd all sing together. Because they didn't have TV, they didn't have all this other stuff we have
No
today.
Netflix, man.
Yeah, exactly. They would do stuff together, and that's what we did. And when we did that, we got amazing results.
Well, that's the great part is putting yourself in that position. And even now, when someone experiences something, you want to put yourself in that position, same environment and so forth. But when you do that, based on chronology, based on the timeline, it's amazing how the feedback that you get is so positive because there's that recognition there.
It was to see people's faces, because everybody has different things going on in their life, and every person asked a question and we were getting responses. And I would say 90% of the time, every time someone asked a question, we were getting a response. And to see their faces light up with the answers, and then to see when we sang and have this response. And then, what did you think about this one woman that sang? I said, it was wonderful. Hug her. They said to hug her. So when we were done, we all got up and hugged her, and it was this sense of, Robert Tinker, and he would speak through the devices. And we said, what was the one thing that you enjoyed the most about your family and living here? And he said, love.
Yeah.
So we were dealing with spirits that appreciated, and they were well known for being a really loving family and really kind and giving to the community. So as we are in life, we are also in death.
It's like finding a common ground with them too, where it's, like you said, you're always, who are you? Where are you from? Can you knock 3 times? And when you get to a point where you're now trying to you're trying to forge a common ground, no matter how many hundreds of years are between you, but people still get together. They still celebrate things. Maybe it's different, but once you start, like you said, connecting on their level as far as what they used to do, I would imagine that the results just go through the roof because, like you said, they can identify with that. They don't understand the magic box and the phone, in your hand anymore. So it's really making a really cool connection. That's really interesting.
It was cool. And, we were there Friday, and they were there. Well, we were there last Saturday too. But when I was there Friday night, which was my second time there, a week later, I walk in. I say, Robert Tinker. I said, are you here right now? How are you doing? You play it back, and it says, Chris, I see you're here again. It was the EVP. And it's just like, and I turn and look at one of our tour guides. The tour guide looks up at me and goes, I'm like, this is awesome. So every night he was responsive, through EVP and other methods, because that's his home. He's still there.
Sure.
So it's not like you always get that at locations you go where the resident consistently talks to you. You might get a little bit and then you don't hear from him again. But because we were there, 3 times in a row, he was responsive every single time. So that was just me. That was just fascinating. And then to hear a spirit say, hey, would you please sing for us? And a woman goes, you sing too. And I was like, holy cow, it was an A-grade EVP. You sing too.
It's a beautiful location, by the way. Look at
Oh, wow.
Gorgeous. And that was hand built because he went to Switzerland and he loved the architecture there. So he decided to build something similar in Rockford.
Yeah, it's got a very European vibe to it, to say the least.
Kind of like a chalet almost type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And where is this in conjunction to where you live?
Oh, it's only about 45, 50 minutes away.
That's
So
awesome.
That's convenient.
far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a place that you've investigated often enough where it feels like home when you go there? You know what I mean? Like just
the Queen Mary was like that for me because we had done the Queen Mary on Dead Famous for the Lucille Ball episode. And then when we did the Darkness events, we were there like 5 times, I think. So I'd been there so much. Every time I went there, I would say, spirits, I'm back, and when I would leave, I'd say goodbye and they would say goodbye on the recorder. So it was like you built that relationship, except there was one that didn't like me and he called me some nasty names. But it's like you have those.
Can't please everybody.
you're right.
Yeah. And Joliet Prison as well, because I've done several events there over the last 3 years, and they remember when you come back. They said, hey, this is here, so it's so cool to have that respect from them when you respect them as well.
What's the current status on the Queen Mary? That's done now?
I don't know, but I would love to go back there for an event.
Yeah.
I was going to maybe look into it, but I have no idea what's going on.
I think they're trying to figure out who wants to accept the responsibility of the maintenance right now, because there was talk about actually scuttling it. It's that bad.
I heard,
So the port of Jesus, why do I want to say I want to say Long Island. Sorry.
Long Beach.
Port of Long Beach wants to get out from under that, and so the people who owned it previously just didn't take very good care of it. I mean, you literally have to send divers down, and you got to scrape it, you got to paint it, and unfortunately, I don't know. It's just in flux right now.
Yeah,
sad.
Yeah, sad.
Yeah, there are some property owners that just knock it out of the park. I don't know if you've been keeping up with Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum and all the renovations they've done there, Chris, but the place looks spectacular. I mean, there's
last time I was there was Paranormal Challenge, I think.
My goodness, that long ago. Wow.
Yeah, I was on Ghost Adventures Live 2009 when I introduced the Spirit Box.
Yeah.
And the Mel Rem. And then I went back there again, I believe it was for Paranormal Challenge.
Yeah. It's a struggle for a lot of these property owners to stay above that line where they could possibly just suffer from it horribly. And the person who just picked up the farmhouse on Round Top Road, the Conjuring House, great businesswoman, and she's really rejuvenated the place, and even who we spoke about last time, Cody and Satori what are they managing this weekend or hosting, Ken?
Yeah, no,
Caretaking.
they're just taking care of the place for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's amazing. Ken, more questions, or we want to give Aaron a chance also with Chris?
Yeah, I've got like a bunch of them lined up here. So strap Chris to a chair, and one of the things I
Stretch those.
actually want. That's it. I actually wanted to circle back on something, Chris, with the physical things that you went to. I was going to ask you this question a little bit later on. If there's a price that you pay for channeling emotionally, physically, is this something that has been with you for a while, your chronic pain, or was this something that came on at the onset of you starting to communicate? Are the two tied at
No,
all, or
the
is
neck, the TBI that I had from the car accident was a mild TBI. I had a tear in the front left cortex, and I had a tear in the T1 from the whiplash from the car accident. But the damage that I had in my neck, which even my doctor says I could have microscopic tears in the brainstem, they wouldn't know until they do an autopsy in my body. But the challenge is, I played football, grade school, high school, college, and I've broken both arms. I've torn both knees, had them replaced. I've had torn rotator cuffs. No big deal. You heal from it. But I'll tell you this: when you have a neck injury, it doesn't heal. It's the worst. I do not. It is not from doing any of the channeling. However, I did have a past life regression 3 years ago. A friend had come over, and my head was cut off in a life when I lived on this island. I was a farmer because the Spaniards came and they wanted to take over our island in the name of Spain, force us to sign it. We wouldn't sign it, so some of us farmers, our heads were cut off in front of the rest to intimidate them to sign the document.
Right.
Maybe that's related. I honestly don't know, but I do know that we had an infestation in my house at the time where these creatures, these things that I saw when I was a kid, because we opened up portals with the Ouija board, and they had come back. And they had come back because the girl that I was dating at the time had an attachment. And her attachment, by giving her permission to live with me, I gave permission to them to be in the house, which they started manifesting and doing stuff, which some of it I have on audio, some of their responses. Things were happening in succession. And when I first saw it in the house, which was September, I think it was September 7th or September 9th, right around there, I did a drawing of it. Okay. Because the next day, whenever I have a phenomenal experience with some type of entity, I will draw it so I don't forget. So I drew it the next day. I saw this thing walk out of the closet. When I turned and looked, I wanted to revert back to my childhood of fear of racing into my parents' room, where the sitter trying to calm me down from what happened. And I realized, oh my God, this is the thing that I saw as a kid, these things. And to see them as an adult from an intelligence of experience over decades compared to when you're only about 7, 8 years old is a huge difference, because as a child, they look so much bigger. But then when you are an adult, you realize these things are only about 2.5 feet tall. For it to show itself and then retreat, I contacted Adam Bly. I says, Adam, you're not going to believe this, but remember I told you about these things from my childhood? I just saw it. Okay. He says, that means that either someone in your house or something has an attachment, something you've done, but it also means something's going to happen. And obviously it was attached to her. She had issues. And it was about a week, 2 weeks later is when I got in a car accident. And I was warned a few things. There was a thing with her. They said, if you don't walk away from her, you're going to get in a car accident. I'm like, well, how am I going to get am I going to die in the car accident? I was like, no, then I'll be fine. And then a week before the car accident, I was at the dealership because there was a recall on a part. And I'm sitting there and a voice says, you're going to be back here in a week or two. You're going to get hit, in a car accident. I'm like, what? And then 30 seconds before the car accident says, you're going to be texting your girlfriend, you just got in a car accident. And sure enough, I'm like, when's that going to happen? Happens in a minute later, and boom, I'm in this car accident. So the thing is, you get these warnings, but I believe there was these things were involved because it really brought me into a dark place after the car accident, or even darker than what I was going through. huge dark place.
Yeah, I want to get something for all of us to chew on here, but the last time you were on, I promised you that I was going to show this, and I told you I'm a huge Boston Bruins fan, even though
Yeah.
we kind of gagged in the playoffs a little bit. But
The cat's crying.
I
Oh
had to
yeah,
show,
yeah.
I had to show you Dad's card tonight.
Yeah, I've
Oh,
got
that's
that.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Reg Fleming, tough guy,
Oh, yeah, he was.
tough
I
guy.
got some audio from him from some of our interviews when we talked about the ghosts in my house. So
That'd be
Oh
great.
man.
What I wanted to ask you about, Chris, is the last time we talked, you said that in terms of not just of TV, but generally speaking, one of the most rewarding things you did was on Psychic Kids.
yeah, Psychic Kids
Working,
and Help My House is Haunted were the two.
yeah, working with young people, something similar that they're going through, that what you went through. And in a lot of those cases, you're dealing with adolescents, you're dealing with 11, 12-year-olds, sometimes teenagers, sometimes younger.
Right.
And we all know what it's like to be at that age because we're just trying to fit in. We're trying to find our place, you know, we're trying to maybe get a boyfriend, a girlfriend, hang out with the cool kids, join a club, just kind of try to find ourselves. And then you get this other thing that's tossed in on top of you as if, you know, that doesn't make you even more detached from just trying to fit in. So you have all those things that these kids are dealing with. When a kid comes to you, and however the introduction's made through their parents, I would imagine normally, what is the checklist? Because I wouldn't imagine it's immediately. It's like, oh, we're going to hone your abilities.
Oh, yeah, of course.
We're okay. So
Well, it's listening.
maybe that's the last thing. But where do you start off with? Because I know there's an awful lot of people who watch this show that have children who dive into that. So this is the perfect time if you're listening to ask you, where do you start with a kid?
Well, number one, you listen, okay? And here you have to listen. And here's I'm gonna say two things. People don't know is I've been in private practice for now, what, 17, 18 years as a consultant. And when I say consultant, I'm a spiritual consultant. I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychotherapist. I never completed that degree. But what I do is I'm a counselor, okay? And I counsel people on experiences. And I've been doing that 17 plus years. Out of my house, or we do it over Zoom. I used to do some visits and stuff and travel, but that just took up a lot of time. So I have, we were just figuring this out last year. Over 2,000 people, I've had appointments with.
Wow.
So the fact of the matter is, and I don't try to count it because that's not important. What's important is what I learn from people, but then also I've been in their shoes. I grew up where, remember in the 70s, don't talk about it, people think you're crazy. My parents would tell me, don't tell people at school what's going on here. They're going to think we're nuts. And they did. I mean, teacher brought me out, said, you're making this stuff up. I go, no, I'm not. I was humiliated, and shame on her for doing that because we need to listen to our children. Yes, children have imaginations, but children are also open to stuff because they're not opinionated or narrow-minded like some adults are. So they can perceive and see these things. So I will sit there and listen to a kid, and I will listen to him tell his stories, but I will also watch his body movement, his mannerisms. When we did the first episode I did of Psychic Kids, where there was Colt and Bryson, and Edie is sitting to my right, and I'm looking at both of them trying to tell their story, but Colt's father is trying to negate that it's not real and this doesn't happen. And I see not only Colt getting fed up and upset because his dad won't listen to him, which I went through that for a period of time. My dad didn't want to talk about it. Okay. So I could never turn to my dad about it, even though sometimes he protected me when something happened. He was just as scared. But his way of handling it was do not talk about it. Okay. My mom would share, we talk about it, and then we do the Ouija board to talk to spirits about it. But in this case, here I am looking at all those years of experience of what I went through, and I know what this kid's going through. He wants his father to accept him and listen to him because he knows it's happening. He knows it's real. And if his father doesn't believe him, then he feels something's wrong with him or that his father doesn't love him, right? And I see Bryson getting uncomfortable because Bryson didn't really have a father that's around. And Bryson's getting uncomfortable because he's like, well, crap, if I had a father and acted that way too, what do I do? Who do you turn to? You're supposed to turn to your parents. But I could see that Colt's father was not listening to him. So I sit there and I start getting emotional because I know what that anger was like. I knew that frustration was like growing up as a kid. Teachers wouldn't listen to me. Some of my friends wouldn't listen to me, but then some of my friends had experiences in my house, and that was the greatest thing. Sister didn't want to talk about it. She was terrified. My mom says, don't tell anybody else about this. Who the hell do you go to? So I know that frustration. So I turned and I said to him, I go, listen to me. I'm trying to hold back my emotions, but also as a medium and empath, I'm picking up the emotions of both these kids that they're holding back. And Colt starts wiping his eyes and Bryson's trying not to cry. And here I am bawling, right? And they see an adult that's supposed to help them bawling, right? So Colt's father's face lights like, oh my God, I need to listen to this adult because if he's that emotional about it, he went through something that I need to try to understand. And I said to him, I go, listen, you don't have to believe in this, but you have to believe in your son. You have to listen to your son because he's telling you something that you have not experienced yet. And then when you experience it, you'll realize all those times that you were supposed to be there for your son and you weren't, without saying shame on you, because that's your role. That's your responsibility to protect your kids, protect your family as a man, but also to listen to your son. If there's something wrong, then you resolve it. But you can't resolve it if you don't believe. So I plead. I said, I'm pleading with you. You don't have to believe this, but I'm telling you this stuff exists. Well, during that weekend, the place we stayed at, which was a Henry Packer mansion, it was amazing. He was upstairs and he turned and he saw pages of this book flipping by itself. And the page would then go up like this and go like this, and then it would go down. He's like, so the ghost there, because what I said to him earlier that day, know exactly what's going on, that he doesn't believe and has not had an experience. The ghost in this location did stuff only with him around to make him realize this is real. And he came later and says, you're not gonna believe what just happened? I saw pages moving and everything. So he brought his son back up there because his son knows more about this than he does. And this wasn't all on camera. Okay, this wasn't in the show. I don't know. I can't remember what parts were in the show, but a lot of it wasn't. And they're up there investigating together. And next thing you know, they're going around the whole place investigating together. And the father's all excited, like, oh my God, this stuff is real. So we had broken through, but also the spirits had helped to show him that this was real. So for me, like, hey, I've been there, gone through this. I can't change the past of my childhood, but I can sure as hell influence and assist people that they don't have to go through that.
Right. Well, the thing is, if you don't, and the way I always counsel people on this is that I know sometimes it sounds like your child's like making a pretty ridiculous claim, but if you're not going to listen to them now, there's going to come a time where they're not going to trust you with something that's important that they need to talk to you about because you're just going to say,
shut them down.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing that was really interesting about doing Psychic Kids is I remember my agent had called me. Well, we had a meeting with A&E because we were pitching them some show that I wanted to do, and they didn't care for the show idea, but they had a development and was like, you know what, you would be great on Psychic Kids because you've told us your story growing up. We'd like to put you on an episode. I said, oh my God, I would love to. It'd be like a dream come true for me because I was those kids. So I did one episode. They loved it. And next thing you know, the director calls me a few days later and says, hey, I want to have you on another episode because we really liked how you handled these kids and what you did. So they threw me on another episode a couple weeks later. And then for the third season, I did, I think 4 or 3. I can't remember. But I did a couple more. And it was something where it didn't get paid much at all for doing it. But for me, it was priceless. And it was priceless because I got to, not that I need to face my childhood. There's no fears left. I'm not afraid of these things at all because I totally know them. But it was a way to go back in time. And each one of these kids, I saw a little bit of me in them, to where I could travel back in time and be that spirit guide or that guide for myself by helping these kids. And the thing is I still keep in touch with them. Like Colt reached out to me. It was like 2 years ago. He gave me a call one night out of the blue. And I was talking to him, and he was just thanking me for everything. And I was just like, wow, that many years later, you realize the impact you made on these.
How old is he? How old is Colt now?
Oh God, his close to his late 20s, 30s. I can't remember.
Yeah. A while back. Yeah, he's 41 now.
Well, you see some of these kids are married and got kids, and it's just like you're like got their own families, and you're just like, what the?
Has he stayed with in contact with the paranormal?
He still has experiences. The biggest thing was overcoming the fear,
Sure.
And the majority of them, it was like they were terrified. They see these things, they don't know what to do. I said, would you even ask the ghost what it wants? You listen and ask questions.
Yeah.
That's the important thing. But if our fear gets in the way and what other people think, we don't listen and we don't ask the question. So for me, going back to is I listen to them. I listen, okay, what happened? What are you afraid of? What do you want to know? I don't just jump in the same thing with everybody,
Right. You were talking about this before, and another question I had for you. You have dealt with both the angelic and the negative.
Yeah.
In your life. Does a battle rage constantly between those two? And as humans, are we kind of caught in the crossfire of that? Or are we just sometimes collateral damage? Are we participants in that, or are we just unwittingly caught in the middle of something?
Well, it's a good point. Are we caught in the middle of something? Well, for those that protect themselves and don't dabble in this stuff, they're not really caught in the middle, right? Because they're going down their path and destiny. When you jump into this type of thing, it finds you, and it can make it worse. Because when I've done certain negative cases, demonic cases, troubled cases, psychological cases, there tends to be entities involved that will then attack me if I made a huge dent in what they're doing. And then things will come at me from different directions, as well as them attaching themselves to other people. So the thing is that is there a spiritual battle going on without getting into religion and stuff like that? Absolutely. There's the light and the dark. There's the source, which the Army intelligence calls the absolute. Religions call it God, creator. Okay. It's the infinite intelligence that quantum physics discussed, that the source of all things of the universe. And there's an opposite, which I've come to realize is this darkness, not a light. It's a complete darkness, an amorphic shape that will turn into various manifestations of fear, of evil, of scary stuff, such as the devil, demons, entities, these imps. And it all stems from this amorphic darkness that turns into these types of creatures. Every culture has talked about it. So, people say, oh, it's all religion and this and that. No, religion is writing about stuff they've experienced from their perspective. It exists whether you're in religion or not. It's simple, okay? Yep. Sumerians talked about it. They knew there was an underworld. They wrote about it. Earliest forms of scripture and writings go back to Sumerians and just before then. So you have this part of creation that exists to create a balance, to choose between good or evil. The problem in today is
it's weaponized.
Yeah, it's weaponized, and there's more negativity today and people not protecting their thoughts. Like I tell people, when you deal with attachments, possessions, whatever it may be, if you don't control and protect your thoughts, then who will?
Amen to that. Aaron, you've
Yes,
been fairly
sir.
quiet. We want to give you some time also with Chris before we go to our break. So what questions do you have for our guest tonight? And if you ask what's the scariest place he's ever been to.
Oh God, no. We know I'm not an investigator, so I don't come with that angle as much. But I am newer in my abilities. I realize now that I've always had them, but I'm always fascinated when I get a chance to speak with other sensitives, because we all get our information differently.
Right.
We all have multiple clairs. I love talking about the clairs, but my question for you is, when you either go to a place or you're working with someone individually, do you have a specific ability that kicks in first or stronger than the others? Or is it based on the entity that you're talking to? You know what I mean? Like, does something kick in for you first? Because for me, I'm a feeler.
Yeah.
I feel it before anything else.
Well, I don't know how to answer that, because it's always different. For example,
Right.
We went to Tinker Swiss Cottage. Okay. We went on the April 29th and these past 2 nights. Well, I did walk through there back in February to meet Samantha and some of the staff to say, okay, I'd like to do an event here. I want to see what it's like so I get an idea how many people and how we break up the groups. Because I put it all together myself, but I had people that help me out. Alex Felix helps me out in Chicago. I've had Bartle and Henson Paranormal help out some of the events and some other people. Just wonderful people. And it's so great to work with like-minded people.
Sure.
But for me, it's like I did that walkthrough and everything. And then a week before the actual event, I had an astral travel when I was sleeping. And I was conscious. I'm like, wait, where the hell am I? And I'm walking through this dark house and I go, oh my God, this is Tinker Swiss Cottage. And I was hearing music play, like old music on a phonograph. And I was trying to find out where it was coming from the house. And I go into this one room and I see all these people dressed like in the 1800s, 1900s, standing there looking at this phonograph. And as I walk in, they turn to look at me and I wake up. And I'm like, oh my God, I was there in spirit. And they were there before I went there again physically. So for me, I said, music. I know you guys like music. So that was my trigger the entire time. And the responses we got from music was extraordinary. When I did Help My House is Haunted, okay, the one thing I told people is because after my car accident, this is important to know, people that had investigated with me know me up until 2009. I always got sensitivities the back of my neck. It would tingle when I would feel a spirit around, and that's how I would connect. And scientifically, that's part of the RAS system, the reticular activating system, which I learned a lot about the brain and the brainstem since my car accident. I just want people to know this. I learned so much because of what I was dealing with consciously as well as spiritually. Is this? I have constant pain and stiffness in this part of the area, which is an exact area of my sensitivity with RAS. So I thought, oh my God, I've lost my ability to detect, my sensory to detect. So when I go into places, it's always going off because it's in pain. So I started going back to understanding remote viewing from 2006 when I had gone to see Lynn Buchanan and studied with him. I started looking more research in higher consciousness and non-locality. Now I was familiar with doing non-locality, meaning like if I'm in Waverly Hills and I'm in just one building, I could detect a spirit on the 3rd floor all the way at the end of the building that's standing there, like a radar system. I could detect it. That's non-locality. And I said, I know you're there. And then all of a sudden you hear this voice, right? People are like, oh my God, we just heard a direct voice phenomenon. And I would go there. When I would go into haunted locations, I'm like, we need to go to the 2nd floor on this side of the house. That's where I'm feeling someone, and that's where we'll go. Okay. Always was doing that.
Wow.
But I would feel it here. After the car accident, I would start closing my mind and expanding my consciousness through non-locality, as if I was traveling there with my thoughts, which was part of my spirit and my life force. So in doing that and practicing that after my car accident, and then I had a couple out-of-body experiences because I stopped breathing at night. I had a near-death experience in 2010. I was focusing on out-of-body communication, and it just excelled with everything else that I was doing. And anybody that understands that, if they've had a near-death experience or they had some type of traumatic out-of-body experiences, you gain more sensitivities into various realms in between.
Right.
And then because of that, I just started practicing non-local and local communication. So Help My House is Haunted, I would get stuff months before we went to location.
Yeah.
The location hadn't even been booked yet. But anyone that understands higher consciousness and other realms is it's not limited by time and space. And remote viewing is not limited by time and space. So you could travel somewhere where your present self doesn't know you're going there, but your higher self knows because it's already there.
Hooray for quantum entanglement.
Yes, absolutely. So
That,
for me,
that's
I love
fascinating
it.
to me.
You know, it's just like it's interesting. I was in one place and I see this and I drew it real quick. And then I saw 2 women spirits, like 2 girls talking to me saying, you know, we're going to talk to you and we need you to help us. And we're going to say, I forget what it was they said. And I wrote this down real quick and I took pictures and I sent it to Barry Guy and to Jane. I said, guys, this is one location we're going to. I don't know when, I don't know where, but here it is. And I did drawings. I did remote viewing drawings. Sure enough, 2 months later, we're at this location. We go for a walk and Adrian, the cameraman, takes a picture of us. We're not filming. It's just before we film, we went for walks sometimes. And when he sends me the picture on the phone, I'm like, look at the background. Oh my God, look at the drawing I sent you guys months ago on WhatsApp. And look at this photograph Adrian just took. And it's identical with the forest and the way the trees were and everything else. Then I said, this must be the location we're going to next. Later that day, There was 2 girls looking for their father, which we caught an EVP. Help us find our father. And I come in contact with the father that's devastated because he wants to be with his daughters. And I was channeling his emotion. I said, sir, I'm going to help you find your daughters. And later on, they come through, help us find our father, which I caught an EVP, A grade. And then here's the drawing from 2 months ago of the 2 girls that would talk to us in EVP, and it all came together. So that's getting something before we even know about the location.
Great
And
story.
that's what's so wild, because you have, different spirits communicate differently. They relay their information differently. We receive it differently. And it's just always so fascinating to me, like the remote locality. I've never even heard of that until you started talking about it. And I'm still such a student of this game. Like I want as much like knowledge as I could possibly get my hands on, because I'm still trying to determine what my abilities really look like, and it's just fascinating to understand what other people do. And I'm very much into energy, and I'm a Reiki master. So I'm all about energy. That's my jam.
I could use you right now on my neck.
Let me know. I love chronic pain.
Send it on.
One of my things. I do a lot of work with chronic pain because I've done
Amazon.
that myself, so yeah.
Yeah. We're up against the clock for our break at top of the hour. And before we do that, Ken, if you want to go ahead and give everybody, it's kind of like a segue, I guess you should say, before we go to break, that Ken is going to have to announce. You got about 60 seconds here, Ken. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Once again, a reminder, Ocean State Paracon this year in Harrisville, Rhode Island, as we celebrate the 10th anniversary of the release of the film, The Conjuring. We are going to have, as you see, Andrea, Jen, and Corey, Jacqueline, all present and former owners of the house, Cody and Satori, Carl and Keith Johnson, who were the first original people in the house when all this was going on with the Perrins, brought the Warrens in. Chris, Ron from Monday Night Monsters and Mysteries. September 9th and 10th, 2023. All proceeds from this event benefit the Tomorrow Fund. If you don't know what they are, Google them. They do some tremendous things. Families that are going through a lot of crisis with someone with cancer, they will pick up the bills, pay their heating bill, pay their electric bill, because they know they're against it. So happy to be back in Harrisville again this year. If you want to come, you pick the right year, because it's going to be a Saturday night showing of The Conjuring, an investigation of the house, tours of the house. We've got a lot on tap this year for this event. So if you're in New England, come see us.
And possibly pony rides as well. We got to go to break, guys, and come on to the other half. We're going to talk about some of the Paracons that Chris is going to be attending and hosting, and some of the travels overseas. We'll be right back. We are watching Dead Air Live on the Dead Air Full Spectrum channel. Guys, don't go anywhere. Stay with us.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
As UFO reports come in from around the world, the Mutual UFO Network, MUFON, is there. We continue to explore new cases and build our massive database. We share our information with the world in a number of ways. If you'd like to be part of our investigative team, you are always welcome. What could be more exciting than exploring the UFO question firsthand? Join MUFON, find your friends.
Did you know 75% of Americans are chronically dehydrated? If you struggle with focus, run low on energy, or when it's time to finally sleep, you simply can't, this can all be linked to dehydration, and Fuel Up has the answer. Our proprietary formula contains the finest cellular hydration with the strongest
You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We provide unparalleled coverage of trending news in the world of ufology, cryptozoology, and paranormal phenomenon. Whether you're watching our video live stream or listening to one of our audio programs, you are getting the best from world-renowned researchers and hosts, guiding you through topics the mainstream won't touch. Miss one of your favorite programs? No problem. Head over to the members area at kgradb.com for access to our massive library of award-winning content. Make contact, stay connected, only at kgradb.com.
Welcome back, everybody, to the second hour of our show with a very special guest, Chris Fleming, going to be brought back on here in just a second. First, I wanted to say, Android Paranormal, thank you for that remark. Certainly hit the thumbs up button, guys. It boosts the algorithm.
Give us a boost.
Yeah, well, start making T-shirts that say that. I wanted to address something just very, very quickly, if I could, because many of the faces that I see in our chat are regular subscribers and listeners. And though I would never do this on Facebook realistically, and Ken and I actually have a running joke about this request because it's overused and abused in a sense. Those of you who are regular viewers know that I take care of my elderly father, 88, about to turn 89 years old. Well, last Tuesday, and this kind of, I don't know, Chris is in there listening to the aspect of timing of the universe, things that happen. About 7 weeks ago, Pop had a fall and he did some damage. He cracked his T12 vertebrae, but was on the road to recovery, actually about 6 weeks of never leaving the house and just going through the physical regimen and rehabilitation. He was doing incredible. He recovered almost fully. Our first day out was to go to a doctor's appointment, and at the doctor, Pop fell again, going into X-ray, and shattered his right pelvis in 3 places, obliterated the fracture that he had 7 weeks ago. The vertebrae is obliterated, and 3 other spinal fractures. He went to intensive care down in Daytona. He was up here where I live, Palm Coast, and they moved him down there to the specialists. The specialists basically said because of his advanced age, they cannot even consider surgery, which I'm kind of grateful for. But now is the arduous task of rehabilitation, where he is going to be wearing a back brace and recovering, learning to do the physical rehab. It's going to be about a 12-week process. So the thing Ken and I joke about, we see too much of, I'm going to ask for, because there's a lot of energy that's here on the show and a lot of energy in chat for those thoughts and prayers for Pop, particularly because it's going to be tough. He's a trooper. He's laying in bed there. He's smiling. He's got an appetite. Every time Pop has some sort of at his age, a problem and it has to be hospitalized or see the doctor, the response is always, he's our favorite patient. He's just one of those guys that you just cannot help but love. So I appreciate anything you guys can send our way. We'll be getting your questions here in just a little bit also.
Give it up for Pop.
Yeah, we'll bring our guest on again, Mr. Christopher Fleming. And thank you, Chris, for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
So when you were talking about what happened with your neck, it just sparked that memory and thoughts.
Absolutely. I'm sorry to hear that. Does he have osteoporosis at all?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, that's why. Okay.
Yeah, he's got multiple issues, which, again, when you get to that age, I mean, I can only hope I reach to that level. We're 88, 89 years old. God bless him.
Yeah.
And again, he's all heart. He's my hero. So just thank you to everybody out there also. So I don't know, Ken, what do you want to do? Do you want to go to the questions?
Yeah, there were questions. I've been looking at these questions. I'd be more than happy to answer some of them.
Sure.
Yeah, we've got almost 2 handfuls in there. So let's get to some of these things. Let's start with Sarah Youssef. Having the ability to recognize spirits, do you feel a responsibility to make things right or correct the flow of environmental energy?
With great power comes great responsibility. The thing is after I had my near-death experience and what I was shown and what I saw, and I came back, and then certain cases I had that connected the dots from that near-death experience showed me that we can make a difference. And when a lot of places we were going to and spirits were saying, help, I need help, sometimes they're not spirits saying they need help. They're negative entities trying to trick you. But in a lot of cases, there's souls that are trapped. They're confused, stuff like that. Some people say, no, you can't cross spirits over. They're partially correct. You can't cross spirits over, but the spirits can cross over if you break through to them, because it's free will. The law of the universe is free will. And as we know in psychology and what we know in sports, I played sports 15 years, mind over matter. Sports is like 85% mental in performing and believing in yourself. When you suffer from depression, anxiety, oppression, or something's been done to you, it creates a frequency or vibration that affects how you interact with others as well as how you interact in your environment. So for me, I learned from my experiences and I pursued, and this is strictly what I do, is I try to find out what is the state of the spirit at that place. If you saw Help My House is Haunted first season, second season, that was very important to me. And I would fight to make sure that we get to the bottom of why they're there and to try to help them. I do that all the events I go to too. Is there spirits that need help? Do you need prayer? And I will do that. We did prayer last night for the Tinkers and everything else. But they have their free will of where they want to go. So I try to help the spirits as best as I can, even with the colleges. When we go to places haunted, I will do prayers for the spirits and try to help them and set what's right. It's a responsibility, because if you don't do it, who will? It's like prayers for the dead. If you don't pray for them, who will?
Yeah. Following up on that theme, Sally Michelle would like to know, when you have mental illness, are you more vulnerable? So if you want to get into that a little
absolutely.
more.
And having worked with psychiatrists, psychologists, as well as exorcists in regards to mental illness. And if you study, spirit attachment and spirit release, which is well practiced and known in the UK, is they have found from thousands of cases, cataloging it and documenting it, scientific method, that 80% of the cases have had attachments. Okay. Now, whether you believe in religion or not, Jesus or not, it even shows in scripture where the apostles and Jesus removed negative entities that were causing physical as well as mental afflictions in individuals. But you don't have to go by scripture. You talk to various therapists, psychologists, and even exorcists that have been doing attachments and entity connections and contact for many, many years, and they'll tell you. Someone that is dealing with mental illness has trauma from their past that is causing that. But for them to get resolved, there is a large percentage that have difficulty healing or getting to a better state of mind, because sometimes you will have these entities trying to keep you in that state of mind, in that state of frequency. So we have in various cases where a person can be 100% just all psychological. And then you can have cases where there is psychological, chemical, but there's also some entity that's feeding off of that. And it's keeping them in that state. It's very parasitic. Robert Monroe talked about parasitic entities he came in contact with his travels during out-of-body experiences. And he used the scientific method. He documented every one of his journeys, and he kept records of it for years. So there's professionals out there that This is their career. This is their job and what they do to help people with these types of entities. Now you look at the DSM manual, I believe it was the DSM-4, DSM-5, had in there spirit attachment, that a person can go into a trance and be possessed or have an attachment by either a god or spirit or some type of entity. It was in the manual for psychologists. It was taken out and reworded because some psychologists had a problem with that. But the reality is, whether you believe it or not, I really don't care, because I've been doing this my whole life. I've experienced it. I have more than enough cases I've done and evidence. And, obviously there's going to always be resistance in understanding this. It's just people that are uneducated or lack of experience. There are these things that can cause that. Just because you have a mental illness, you have a trauma problem, does not mean you have an attachment. But when you work with somebody, that is something that should be looked at as well.
I have a question on that, if I could interrupt for like half a second. I've always wondered this from an energetic perspective. We typically think of humans, matter, heavy, dense, low vibrational, right? We tend to think of spirit as high vibrational, frequency. But when you're dealing with negative entities,
lower,
they are considered. I always wonder that. Did they fall under lower because of their intent?
Absolutely. Okay. Even look at the double tone, and you look at various frequencies of music and sound, which carries a negative connotation to it, and hertz and frequencies, higher vibrations and frequencies as well. What is light? Light is a different frequency than actual darkness in the spectrum. And the same thing is applied to emotions and between good and evil. It's everything in the universe is a wave. Everything is a frequency.
Yes.
So,
do you see things as energy? Like, do you see things as a frequency? Because that's how I see things, as opposed, like, I don't see people so much. I see the frequency that they're emitting.
When I'm in a various conscious state, I can see the life force, that is the energetic field around people, with the colors. Okay.
Yep. Okay.
I was in a hallucinogenic state once, and I saw the soul as well as the entirety of the life force that was branching out, and everybody that came in contact with, very similar to what was written about many years ago in the Celestine Prophecy, with the energetic interaction that animals, plants, and humans have. And, I carry in photography showing that spectrum, and amazing how the colors represent various periods of time, emotions, and experiences that's recorded within the life force that either recognizes similar in somebody else in the invisible spectrum and interacts, which we don't even see with our eyes. People think that when you walk up to someone and shake their hand, that's the interaction. Well, when you're standing there, as you're walking up, your life force and that person's life force is going like this to get to know each other and recognize each other before you even shake their hand physically. It's extraordinary.
Now you're like, that's my language. And I find this stuff so absolutely fascinating, how you can sense things that way.
So I do want to say one thing though, Aaron, is into that question, because I like to have solutions, is when someone says, and they question, I don't want people jumping to the conclusion, well, I got a mental illness, therefore I have an attachment. And I've seen those cases where someone says, yeah, I got demons. There's 200, 300 demons all around me. And there isn't. It's complete psychological issues, fragment part of the brain that is thinking they have this to try to find and blame it rather than taking responsibility for their own identity. But anyone that suffers a mental illness, is you can work on things to help with self. Look at the Stutz pyramid. Look at your health, the body, working with people, and then you work on self. Study what Stutz has done with that pyramid. It's extraordinary. But the other thing to do is that you listen to your psychologist, you listen to your therapist to work on the mental diagnosed aspects. But then as well, I would suggest meditation, practicing protection, putting yourself in a frequency of higher consciousness to cleanse and reestablish your life force with the body, mind, spirit to heal. And if you create that environment, you are not susceptible to attachments.
Interesting.
Yep. I'm just over here like giddy because I'm like, this is this is my language over here.
Let's squeeze another one in here quickly. Laurie,
locations stay with me most. Definitely the house I grew up with. I always reflect back to that, what I learned from that house. And you get into a point where, I don't want to say you're desensitized, but when I've heard other people's stories and I see other people's stories, and I'm like, and when I talk to certain people about my stories, I don't realize how wild, crazy, extraordinary these things are, because it's just a part of me. And then I realize, oh my God, like this happened and that happened. it's wild, so that's why, we talked about George. I still haven't written my book. I'm working on the universe. It's funny because I was doing some ITC. I said, all right, spirits, I know I'm way behind. When should I write my book this year? They said, start June. So in June, I'm gonna start writing the rough draft. But the point of the fact of the matter is that there is a lot to learn. And we go through life, like, what kind of contributions do we want? What can we do? I was at Blackwater Tower Castle filming in Ireland back in December, and for Haunted Ireland that's coming out in the fall. And I know I was asking the universe to give me some signs, and this place was extraordinary. I'm telling you, it was just extraordinary, the synchrodestiny of certain things that popped up while we were there. The gentleman that owns the place, he's like a multimillionaire. He has all these patents. He's retired. He's going to sell the place. He says, can I give you guys some advice or anything? He's like, when you get my age, this and that, whatever knowledge and experience you have is so important to pass that down to others, but also to share it. He goes, you should write a book. You should do this. And he doesn't even know stuff that I've gone through. I'm sitting there going, oh my God, the universe is speaking through him. That is important. Like, the last testament thing that I need to do to make sure before I die is I have got to share this information. I've got to share this book with what I've gone through to help people. It's important. And it's important not for me, but it's important when you look at psychic kids and stuff like that. People that have gone through this or something similar, they don't know where to turn to, and they read this and they understand this, and it opens up to them to a higher consciousness for a greater understanding of resolution as well as peace within themselves. So, that's what's important. And it all comes and stems from the house I grew up in.
Mm-hmm. I got one I want to go in from Cassie. A little bit of advice. What literature, resources, or practices would you recommend to help increase our abilities, and how to interpret the messages we receive accurately?
All right, I'm going to break that down into two things. I'll start with the last part first, and how to interpret the messages we receive accurately. What I started doing, because dreams I was having come true and I was freaking out my friends and this and that when I was in high school, okay, and I still have the journals, is I started writing down the dreams and the visions and the feelings that I would get. And then what happened, weeks would go by, months would go by, something would happen, I would reflect back from it, where either I misinterpreted what I was writing down because it happened, or I was over assuming something before it happened. So what I learned from that is that if I get a vision of something that's going to happen or a dream, I don't try to figure it out. I just focus on the details I was shown so that I don't start misinterpreting or putting things in there. The best way to do that is to journal. The best way to do it is journal, because then you forget stuff very quickly. I'll have stuff happen all the time and stuff. So I have a journal that I have in my phone. I just type it in and it puts the date, everything, and catalogs it, and I can go back to it and there it is. So I suggest people to visions, dreams, whatever, put it in a journal, whether it's digital or a personal hand one. Now, what literature, resources, or practices would you recommend to help increase our abilities? Well, there's a lot of stuff on YouTube and everything, but it doesn't come from people that have experienced it. They're just trying to say stuff. So you have to be careful. You have to go through people that have had these lifelong experiences or they've gone through it, because then they're not just speaking stuff to get likes and attention, is they're talking from having been there. And that's what's really important. When I started doing a lot of these, Dave, people said, do you have a book about all the abilities? No, I don't. But Echo Bodine has a book called The Gift. And I suggest you read it, because I've met her. I have looked through her book and I said, wow, she's covered it. She's covered all the different types of abilities and what their meaning are. And for you to figure out what type of abilities I have, what category does it fit in, read her book.
Yep.
So I would recommend that. And then a book that I loved that I went back to in 2009 after my car accident, 2010, was what Lyndon Buchanan was talking about the seventh sense. And he wrote a book called The Seventh Sense. Now, he came in after Stargate with remote viewing, and they realized that, yes, we all have a sixth sense, but there's also a seventh sense. What is that seventh sense? Well, that gets into the non-locality and outside our physical body of experiencing and sensing things. And that helped me because I had my neck injury. So I would read both of those books. That's a good start. And then look into the gateway analysis. But the gateway analysis, I'm going to tell you, if you do the whole program, you go through that program, you're going to be hitting stuff and going places that's actually really scary, because you're completely out of your body and you're in other dimensions with other beings. some people may not be ready for that. So I would say once you've done these other things, and then you feel comfortable enough, try the Gateway program by the Monroe Institute. It's extraordinary.
Yeah, I was working up finding this so people could see it. Let me see if I can bring this up for us now. Yep. Oh, this is the book Chris is talking about. So.
Yep. Wonderful.
All right. Echo, you're welcome. There we go. All right.
I have one too that I've been enjoying. Was Michelle Belanger has one called the Psychic Energy Codex, and that one's really interesting because it does give you some like simple techniques to try that anyone can do. And it really doesn't matter what your ability level is. But I've learned a lot as I'm going through that book as well. So.
Go ahead, George.
Well, I was going to ask you, Ken, do we have a few more questions we want to get to, or you want to hit
We
those
do.
a little bit later?
Mean, yeah, we can circle back because
okay.
I see one here, Ken. There's the one
we got
about the difference between European and American hauntings by Sarah again.
Sure.
Yeah.
Is there a difference between European and American hauntings? Yes. How does local
accent
perception of these entities? Well, when you look at the cultures in Europe, I mean, it's much older than America. So you have spirits that people have been coming in contact with much longer than they have here. So they've learned a lot. And when you're dealing with some of these ancient spirits, they're able to do more extraordinary things. I mean, we had activity, some of the places we went to were doors opening, closing, things swinging right in front of us, catching on camera, that you just dream of, that you see in movies. It was happening because these places are very old and spirits are capable of doing that. But what's extraordinary for me is, and I've learned obviously in America, is when you go to places over and over and over and over again and other people go in there, it gets diluted. And sometimes the spirits may not always be active unless there's something about you that's extraordinary to where they interact with you in such a level that's noticeable. But a lot of times it kind of gets worn down over a period of time. But when you go to fresh locations that have not been investigated before, whether it's someone's home or it's a major historical that they're finally letting you in, spirits are like, oh my God, someone's trying to talk to us. Oh my God, someone's trying to measure us and they're trying to, and it's like, it's crazy. And sometimes it happens the first 15, 20 minutes. I'll tell these production companies, I said, guys, get ready to film right away because we're going to a place that's never been investigated for. Stuff usually happens right away. And it did. Right in the interviews when we walked through the walkthrough, it's like, oh my God, stuff's happening, you know? And I'm used to that. I know that. That's pretty normal for these places. But between America and of course, Europe's fascinating because these spirits have been there for so long. They know their way around the physical and the spiritual realm.
Yeah, I would imagine here, sometimes things can get played out. I'll use an example, the Lizzie Borden house.
Mm-hmm.
I know that when we went in there, we promised ourselves that we were not going to get a confession, relitigated trial. So we went and asked about other facets of her life, love of animals, work with the church and things like that.
Yep.
And those questions seemed to elicit responses. Rather than, you know, Lizzie, confess, did you do? I mean, you can only hear that for the first 50,000 times.
Right.
And after that, one of the things I wanted to get into you, a typical question that we may ask someone is, what do you think that we could do different in the paranormal field? But I want to reframe that by asking, what do you think spirits wish we would do differently?
Well, number one, respect them.
Our communication.
Respect them. Not all, want to leave their location or cross over. Many do. They just don't know how. So I would say that when you go into these locations, establish contact, ask them what they want. Not what you want, but ask them what they want. Is there any goals or anything that they would like to be doing? And that's what I try to, I listen and I ask questions. And I know when I do these events, people haven't been doing this. They come in for a first time or second time ever ghost hunting, and they ask the same questions. Why are you here? How many times you been here? How many people are here? How'd you die? It's always the same thing. We all have done that. We've been there. So you ask the different questions like you mentioned, Ken. But the thing is I always go in there is, can I help you? Is there anything that I can do while I'm here to make your existence better? And that's what I tell investigators in every show I've done. I told people we have a responsibility now that we've been doing this a long time to not go in there, to try to entertain the spirits or have them entertain us. The goal is to go in there because we are making contact. Police officers aren't, psychologists aren't, scientists aren't, as far as we know. We're going in there to do this. So we have a responsibility in reaching the spirits if they need help and ask them, do you want to be prayed for? Do you want help? Is there something affecting you, bothering you? Sometimes they'll say there's negative entities here. Please get rid of them. Like we were at Castle Menzies and the woman who came in contact with, you don't even see it on the show of us communicating with her. They focused on something else in the show, but she's yelling on the recorder, get them out. And I'm like, the crew's thinking it's us. I mean, no, it's not us. Trust me. And I said, what is it you want out of here? The monster, get it out. There's this, she called it a monster, which was this negative entity that was there. So anytime you have something like get out, like for example, I had this, it was years ago, a friend of mine showed us tanning spa. She goes, I need to talk to you. So she stopped by my house and we're sitting in my kitchen and 3 times she sees a black mass fly by. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to get my recorder. So I get my recorder and I said, why are you showing yourself or what's going on? And you hear this voice go, get out. And I'm like, at first I'm like, don't tell her to get out. What are you saying? Don't disrespect someone that comes to my house. Well, then I asked a few more questions. Listen, ask questions. And it was something else that came into the house that was going to try to affect her. But the spirit in my house was telling it to get out. So it didn't affect her.
Right.
Wow.
So the thing is, people, when it says get out, it doesn't always mean it means you to get out. It means there could be something else coming in or something in their house they don't want there. And they're trying to let us know, help me get this out or get this out of here. Because either it followed you or it just came into the house right now. It's not always about us. It's not always about us.
Really good point.
Right.
Really good point.
So it's not a question of move that candle, move that book. Those are parlor tricks that are meant to entertain us, in my humble opinion. It's not communication with spirits.
Right.
Let's take one from Ron. Would anyone consider research an invitation for the spirits to interact with us?
Would anyone consider research an invitation? What do you mean? Consider research an invitation?
Ron, can I assume maybe you mean like the idea that we're thinking of a certain spirit when we're looking up his or her life and doing that research, that they're aware of our interest in them? Ron will have to answer that. While he does, Chris, there's a lot of DIY investigations now with everything that's on TV. People are going out buying recorders, buying cameras, and they're doing this in their own home. Good idea, bad idea, or just kind of benign? No big deal.
Well, I remember when I was testing the spirit box in my house, and I realized, oh my God, there's a lot more spirits in my house than I thought, with all the different personalities. But like anything else, like people says, well, if Ouija boards can open up portals, and they don't always do that. Okay, please understand. But you have some dangers with the Ouija board because you're using your body energy and they're using you to go through to make the planchette move as you open yourself up to that. Can the same thing happen with an EVP recorder and something else? Not really, because in your mindset, you're stating, I got a recorder and will you communicate to this device, not through me? Okay, so what you're doing is you're setting up a parameter saying this object you're going to record to, and then I'm going to play it back. Okay, this spirit box, you're going to communicate this spirit box, and then I'm going to play it back. But with the Ouija board, you got your hands on the thing, and you're asking them to channel through the information to do it. At least that's the way we did it, right? And by channeling through the thing, it's like we were allowing them to attach themselves to us or to come into the property. So I find it is slightly different. However, and Gary learned this the hard way years ago, is if you're doing the spirit box or you're doing something else, and a spirit says, hey, is it okay if I can come into your house? Do I have permission to attach myself to you or permission to come into your house? Do not give it permission. Do not, because you don't know who it is. Like, it was interesting. I posted something recently about the Gateway, and the Monroe Institute popped on their HemiSync. and they said, ask this question, you know, like, what do you stand for, or where do you come from, or what is your intent? You know, you ask that spirit entity, what is your true intent? You know, where are you from? Are you from the light? Are you from the dark? So you need to ask those questions to find out what frequency or vibration this thing, and it's not tricking you. You know, just because it says help me doesn't mean, you know, that's no different today. Somebody goes, hey, you know, come here, man. Can you help me? I really need help. And all of a sudden they pull a gun on you.
Right.
You know, they trick you.
Right.
Humans are just like that. You know, you don't know. Do they really need help? Or they not? And we're in that day and age where a lot of people are being tricked. Same thing happens in the spirit world. So you have to be cautious. You have to use discernment, spirit of discernment, and discern and ask questions to make sure that what you're talking to, who you're talking to, is who they say they are.
Exactly.
So any device, it could happen. You could get an attachment. You could bring something into your home, do the spirit box. You're doing it all the time. Hey, protect yourself, set parameters. You do not have permission to stay here. You can communicate with me, but then you have to leave. This is my domain, not yours.
Yeah. We have about 30 minutes left in the show tonight, and we have to get to some of the activities that you are involved with right now. Predominantly these incredible shows overseas. Now we've got, of course, the
Haunted
two of you,
Scotland.
yep, doing Haunted Scotland. I'm jealous. And how was
Right.
that journey for you?
Incredible. It was incredible for two reasons. One, I got to work with Gail again, which we always kept in touch the past
Amazing.
15 years. And I told her we will work again. You'll see. And you know, the network had called me when I had heard she was doing the show, which I was really upset about because her and I had just discussed April of that year about maybe doing a special going to Scotland and investigating with a local group. And then when I heard she's on the show, Commissioner, I'm like, I should be on it with her. So I was telling the universe, you know, I'm supposed to be with her. You know, I'm the only one who can protect her. You know that we're supposed to be doing this together. You've only been telling me this for like over a decade. And then I get this email and this text message. The network wants me out there next week to film the show with Gail. Can I do it? I said, well, I can't be out there next week. You know, I could be out there in a couple weeks. So I was out there filming with her. So for me, it was a great opportunity to work with her again. And I knew her. It's like we never left. We right off the bat. Anybody watch the show, they could see it. You know, and we're bringing up stuff from the past, this and that. And I have a great love for her because I know what she's been through personally as well as spiritually. So you see that in the show. But then we went to, you know, places that I never even knew existed.
Mind blowing.
And just mind blowing. And the results we got were so crazy. And Ryan's like, oh my God, we're getting so many EVPs. We're getting, I go, that's what I do, man. You know, the first day we were at Bannockburn House, okay, which is a famous house. I remember telling Barry Guy, hey, Barry, I'm on this new show. Network put me on here. And he's like, oh my God, dude, I've done an event there. That's incredible. I said, yeah, we're going there next week. So when I get there, because it was my first time working with Ryan O'Neill, he's got Haunted Scotland. He's got his website, Haunted Scotland. He streams all the time on Facebook. I said, Ryan, we're meeting right now. I look forward to working with you. You have your way of doing things. I have mine, but I want to show you my main thing I do that's very important to me. So we went out in the field behind the Bannockburn House. And I said, when I got here, I sensed there was all these spirits here from a previous war and settlers and stuff that are on this land, just roaming around like walkers in The Walking Dead. And I said, I want to pray for them, help them cross. And I'm going to show you, this is what's the most important thing to me and what I'm doing here. And I will do it at every location, whether it's on the show or not. But I want you to understand my intent. Okay. And I tell anybody I work with, what is your intent for doing the show? Why are you on the show? You know, I need to know what your intent is, because here's my intent. And I'm hoping you respect my intent and we are in line together with the same intent, or you will learn to realize that it's more than just ghost hunting. It's finding out how we can help these spirits. So I did prayers and I did all this stuff. And he took out one of his apps and he had a speaker on. He's listening. He goes, they're talking to you. I said, yeah, I know they're talking to me. And I was doing the prayers. Angels came, everything like that. And they crossed over. He's like, how did you do this? I said, well, I've been doing this a long time. It would take a while for me to explain this. But this is what we're going to do at every episode, whether it's on the show or not. And this was the first hour him and I met, we did. Because I knew it was important for him to understand my intent and the context of why I do these shows. Every show I have to contribute. I have to do something. It's not about being on TV, you know. It's about what can I do to help these spirits? Because I know when I die, a lot of them are going to be waiting for me to have a big party. I'm home, you know. And they said, wow, you took the chance to help us. We've been there for hundreds of years or thousands of years or for decades. And you heard us. I said, yeah, I've heard you since I was a child. So I have to do something with that. And we're still helping people on Haunted Scotland and Haunted Ireland, and the crew respects that, and they let me to do my stuff. Doesn't always end up in the show, but it's what I do. It's what drives me, you know?
Yeah, I think that just from a production standpoint, if you have people that really believe in what they're doing and have an intention, that comes through to the people that are watching it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it really does, instead of just repeating the same old dogma and theories. And when there's some type of emotional investment in what it is that you're doing.
Well, that's why I get emotional sometimes. Gail was always getting emotional. People are like, oh my, she's always scared. I go, well, listen, let me explain to you why she's scared. We haven't been together working like this in like 15 years. Back then, she was a skeptic. She had some experiences, Hotel Coronado, Queen Mary, Thunderbird Lodge, some other places that affected her, impacted her. Over the years, her house, her flat's been haunted. She's seen ghosts and had ghost experiences in her personal life where she lives. Okay. Since then, because of her emotional state and everything she's gone through, she's very sensitive now because she's had spirits enter into her and open up her sixth sense to where now and I noticed she was very sensitive to children and woman spirits near the end of Dead Famous. It's like it just amplified while we were doing the show. So a lot of times she was getting emotional or she was getting freaked out. She was getting freaked out because she has not learned how to control her own abilities that she now has. She has mediumship abilities, but doesn't know what to do with it. So you see that on the show where I start using her to connect with this spirit instead of it going through me. I communicate back with her and she's telling me what it's saying and what she's feeling, but she doesn't realize what she's doing. And it was extraordinary. And I really missed that part of her in our second season when we went to Haunted Ireland because she was not a part of it. So I had to look at other ways to try to communicate with these spirits, because she was a great addition for me to use her not as bait, but as a way to build rapport. Like when we were in Edinburgh, some of the spirits didn't want to talk to me, right? But because oh my God, something's in my room right now.
Oh.
Something I just felt right next to me just whispered.
Hello.
What was I just saying? Oh my God, Edinburgh.
Yeah.
The spirits did not want to connect with me, but because she grew up in Edinburgh, that's her home, they connected with her. And because she's a woman and a mother, the female and the children connected with her. So for me, it was like they're gravitating towards you. They're wanting to go through you. So let's do that. And we did. And it was, if you saw the end of Edinburgh, there's a really amazing emotional end where she was very empathetic for them. And I'm telling her, I said, Gail, we helped them because of you, because you were open enough to this, but because this is your home and this was their home. And that's why they were attracted to you.
Correct.
And I don't think you realize how great of an impact and a difference you made to their spirit tonight. I mean, you really did. She goes, well, I hope so. I go, no, you did, because I see it. I saw them leave. I saw them finally get peace because of you.
Yeah. In a way, it was like in seeing her, talking to her, it was like home.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
To them.
Mm-hmm.
I have another question here. Chris, I want to get your take on this. We hear this all the time. When questioning a spirit, does it have to tell you the truth?
Great question. And earlier I was stating spirit discernment. There's a second part of that. For example, Stanley Hotel, we had a group of like 25 people, and the spirit was saying, help me, help.
I remember.
And I'm sitting there going, yeah, George, you were there. And I'm sitting there going, no,
Okay.
I didn't feel that it needed help. I go, well, you're lying. No, help. Now you're lying. We play it back and it says the F word. It says F you, right? I said, see, it didn't need help. It was pretending to. So you have to ask the question. And I found 3 times you got to ask the question. Whether it has to do with the Holy Trinity or something, I don't know. But I would ask it 3 times. Are you this? Are you sure? Are you this? And then I would ask it, and it looks like we had a thunderstorm coming in. And by the 3rd time, it has to tell the truth. Now, we would go to certain houses that had these imps that were their negative entities, and they would lie. They like to lie. They like to pretend to be children or something else to trick us. And I said, no, you're not. I know what you are. You're lying. And then they get all angry and upset, But they would have to tell the truth by the 3rd time. And maybe it's just with me. I don't know. So I can't say if it works for other people, but for me, it works. They have to tell the truth by the 3rd time I ask that question. Sometimes we'll tell it right away, but If I get this feeling of discernment, no, they're lying. No, this is not what it says it is. I know. And even my team was, no, Chris, it's said. No, it's lying. I'm telling you. Like Barry and I got in this argument at one house. My son, I go, Barry, I'm telling you, it's not this killer. It is these creatures. They're lying to you. I know it. I grew up around them. They came back in my house. I know it's them. And it was. Later when we went through the audio, they said, we're pretending to be this and this and that. And they were lying.
Yeah. If memory serves, and that particular occurrence, it was in the smaller building at the Stanley Hotel, and second floor in the like a hallway. The girl I was dating at the time, Elizabeth, was there, and a couple of people visually saw a morphing of something four-legged, dark, in that same area. So it was challenged. And it was rendered helpless for what it was trying to do, which was deception. That's just incredible what they can perform.
Yeah.
So you go from haunted Scotland and you're like, I don't want to travel anymore. And then Discovery Plus gives you the opportunity for a second season. And we are talking about Ireland coming out this fall.
Yeah. No, I didn't. Not that I don't want to travel anymore. No,
I'm just joking. Yes.
Yeah, no. And the idea, I mean, the concept of the series is to go to different countries and focus the entire series on that country if we continue to get renewed, So the next one was Haunted Ireland. And it's funny because I did a poll on my Twitter and I said, where would you like to go? The UK, Ireland, Italy or France, whatever. And Ireland won on the poll without anybody knowing that that's actually where we're going. So it was what the viewers wanted was Ireland, and that's what they're getting. So it's pretty cool. I like to do these polls to see what viewers, where their mindset is at, with equipment and everything else. So yeah, we went to Ireland, and it's this series, I've been asked not to say too much about it, okay, because Discovery wants to do a nice rollout when it comes out. But I will share, we went to some amazing locations. We did go to a couple locations that people have been before. But I can promise you that with our experience, my experience, and also I spoke to some of the individuals that had been at that place before about the place, we went a whole nother level. And no disrespect to them, but knowing what we knew already about the place allowed us to go a whole nother level and make contact and get to the bottom of it. So some of those locations, we did just that. But it's like not a different team. I mean, it's me, Ryan. Evelyn's with us the whole season. She wasn't the first season. And then we have Vogue Williams. Vogue Williams, she has an interest in the paranormal, not diehard like us, of course, but she's a podcaster, an influencer, and she's modeled and done all this other stuff. And she's very well known in Ireland. So they want to have a presenter in each country that has some interest in the paranormal be a presenter and be a part of this journey with us because they know that country. And that makes sense.
Right.
So it's different. It's a different dynamic from the first season with Gail and I, because you don't see Gail and I. Ryan and Vogue got along real well and really gelled together, kind of like the relationship that I had with Gail. And Evelyn just, knocks it out of the park. Ryan knocks it out of the park with their expertise and their experiments. And some of the experiments that Ryan and Evelyn did, I wasn't privy to. I wasn't a part of it because I was out doing my own thing or I was going through some of the EVPs. And when I saw the footage, because I've reviewed all the episodes, I was like, oh my God, wait till people see this. I'm like, this is crazy. And having worked together now, second season, Evelyn and Ryan and myself, we really gelled together really well. So it's it's similar in the style and concept, but it is a different show. Because you watch it and like, feels different than the first season. And it's in a good way too.
As it should. Before I turn it back over to Ken and Aaron, the last thing that I want you to talk about is because we got about 10 minutes left, the upcoming Paracons that you're going to be part of. Give some insight for everybody and where they can go to get the tickets.
Yeah, like I've talked about being at Joliet and Tinker Swiss Cottage. I do these events and always look out for new locations. And I went to Woodstock Opera House, which is in Woodstock, Illinois. And they filmed Groundhog Day there. That's the whole town there. And there on the front steps, there's the park.
It's got to be beautiful.
Bill Murray going around with the groundhog, everything. And Woodstock Opera House is well known for having Orson Welles was resident there. That did War of the Worlds broadcast, Citizen Kane movie. Dick Tracy, creator, lived in Woodstock. A lot of famous people have been in the Woodstock Opera House. It's haunted with this female ghost. I was originally going to do just a ghost hunt there, my Paranormal Access event. But when I walked around, it'd be great for like a small little paranormal convention. So they worked with me. They're selling all the tickets, and we're going to have 300 people, and we have speakers and vendors. I'm excited because they're speakers that I picked each on a specific topic that I found would be very interesting, because I've been professionally speaking for over 20, 30, 25 years now. And I wanted to have really interesting topic speakers that'll be there. It's only $30 to get you in. The VIP Ghost Hunt sold out in 2 days. Thank God, it helps pay for a lot of this place. But yeah, it's going to be exciting. I'm going to start launching who all the speakers are starting this week. And we've already sold about a third of all the tickets. So I ask everybody, please get your tickets so we know how many people are going to be there. It's in Woodstock, Illinois. You're going to have a great time. You can attend, see all the vendors that are going to be there. You could see the location. You can see the great lectures by these top speakers. And you could also visit the town where they filmed Groundhog Day right there. Take pictures. There's going to be a farmer's market in the morning you can attend. And then there's restaurants in the whole square. So you can grab, there's a Starbucks right next door. So you can get your coffee, you can get some food, lunch, dinner while you're at this location. So it's great.
Check it out, woodstockoperahouse.com to get your tickets. And that sounds like it's a lot of fun. One of my favorite movies of all time, too. Ken and Aaron, further questions here for our guest tonight?
I had one, and then I'm going to turn it over to Aaron. I'm going to call an audible here because I had a question, but I'm going to go in a different direction.
Yeah, you've always run out of time with questions in the past, Ken.
Oh, listen.
Go ahead,
I've got a good one here. One of the things about this show and the guests we have on, we understand that everybody in chat, we have a really smart audience. We really do. And there are a lot of people that go through these things. And this is why we love to have guests on, because it means something to somebody out there. In addressing anybody who's going through any of these things, whether it's having a child with some kind of ability, encountering something negative in their life, a haunting, whatever the case may be, is there something all-encompassing that you could say to everybody if they're dealing with something that just is unusual, that's out of the norm, something to keep in mind?
But how would they? I don't understand your question. If they're dealing with something, what should they do?
Yeah, if they're dealing with something out of the ordinary.
Oh, it's simple.
Regardless of what that may be, is there something all-encompassing that they can ask themselves or do?
Yes.
Go to.
I got it.
Right.
Yeah. The first thing you do is you center. And when I say center, this is what's important to understand. Okay. We all come from the source. We all come from this creator. We all come from the absolute. The Army intelligence calls it the absolute. In their analysis that they did, they use the scientific term absolute, which is this infinite intelligence that has experiences and personalities through us that is all uploaded and downloaded to the absolute and contained. So like scripture and other things say, we are God, we are the creator. We have been given an individual personality. So we come from the source. The source is in us. So if we're dealing something that we don't understand or something negative, the thing is it doesn't want us to tap into that source of who we truly are and believing in ourselves. We must be centered. My cat wants attention. We want to be centered and we want to tap into the source and saying the source is all knowing, it's all intelligent. And this is where sixth sense, intuition, EVP, premonitions, and everything comes from, the collective consciousness. We tap in and say, okay, I'm centering myself, reminding myself that I'm much more than this physical body. I am greater than this physical body. I'm a spirit and soul that is all knowing, but in this human body, it's filtered out to allow me to perceive and understand this situation from higher level of consciousness so I can address it properly. What did I just do? I removed the fear. I removed the fear and I reconnected to the source of who I am that is all knowing to allow me to greater understand this experience or what this is. I sat down with a kid that after 10 months, psychologists and therapists could not help anymore with medication or anything like that, that was collapsing and getting possessed. I asked the entity to come through and I spoke to the entity and I listened to it. And in listening to it, I went and I broke through and asking what it wanted, what it truly wanted. Do you know what it wanted? It wanted peace. And when I told it that it can have that peace, and it didn't understand at first, I broke through within an hour and a half for that entity to surrender and allow other spirits through love and everything to come through to show it and prove to it and guide it through forgiveness and everything else. And this thing was released by listening to it and finding out what it truly wanted by breaking through, just like anybody else. Murderers, killers, people that are frustrated, people going in and getting angry because there's something bothering them, something hurting them so bad. They're trying to project it out and get it out. Find out what that is, listen to them, and give them the opportunity. Not everybody opens up, but give them the opportunity to open up and break through. And then when you're able to resonate and build rapport and understand that, then you can start finding a solution. No different than what I do with these spirits. No different than if you have an entity. No different than psychic kids. If a ghost appears to you and you're terrified, ask it, what do you want? Sometimes these things just want acknowledgement. And once they're acknowledged, they pass through.
Yeah. Rule number 1, purge the fear. Always purge the fear. Yeah. Unbelievable. Just about 3 minutes left. Erin, one for you, if we can squeeze this in.
My favorite that I always ask anybody, what's your favorite way to ground, clear, and protect your energy when you go anywhere, just in general, like a simple thing that you do? What's your process?
Well, I mean, because I had my near-death experience, and what I experienced dealing with the bridge is I just remind myself from the bridge. And when I'm going to a place, sometimes even like, for example, like yesterday, I got in the shower real quick. Alex is showing up. We're going to jump in his car. We're going to head there. I'm in the shower. I said, okay, God, whatever needs to be done, whatever you want me to see and recognize to reveal itself, any way I can be assistance from what we discussed at the bridge, allow it to be so. I am unworthy, but just say the word and I shall be healed. And I just do that. And I walk into places sometimes when spirits start talking, I look up and I see an angel floating in the sky. And I'm like, okay, well, there's something spiritual that's going to happen here. You say the word or just guide us to what needs to be done. Please understand, it's a lifetime of experiences and having connections with these things to where I just let them tell me when I need to know. But for people that this is a little new to you, you must ground yourself and recognize you are attached to a higher thing that you may not fully understand, but then also overcome the fear. And then if you have a sense of faith, belief, consciousness is the most powerful thing. Because when you're no longer in the physical body, just as the faith of the mustard seed says, no matter what you believe in religion or not, it is an incredible thought thing. When we're out of the physical body, we are pure consciousness. What is pure consciousness? It's thought. What does thought do? Thought tells me to go from here to here. It manifests. Now, if you're not limited to physicalities and you're 100% thought, that means the access you have to have things happening in energy and going from one place to the next is instantaneous. So you put yourself into this state that my mind is more powerful than anything else, but my mind is connected to the source, what connects everything, which makes it even more powerful. You can use a battery, or you can go to the powerhouse that generates the entire city. Go to that does the entire city. That's what I do. I connect with the source and I allow it to flow through me.
Love it.
Words to live by right there. We are all out of time. I would like to thank our very special guest, Chris Fleming, for joining us tonight. We probably left about 7 or 8 questions on the table. So maybe after the season finale of the fall, we'll have Chris come back and answer some more of your questions. But that's it for us, guys. Next week, Bishop James Long is going to be joining us, talking about Legion of Exorcists, his new show going to be coming out. So thank you all. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up and the reminder bell. We will see you guys next week. Chris Fleming, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, guys, have a great rest of your week. Take care.
Thank you, George. Thank you, Ken. And thank you, Erin. I appreciate it.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.